Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here with us this morning. We're going to get started. We're delighted to see everyone here for this morning's featured presentation. Thank you for joining us and for being a part of such an innovative and impactful community. Just a reminder, today's featured presentation will be available on CSUN ATC TV within 24 hours. To close out featured presentations for the week, we're excited to welcome Meta, presenting Assistive Technology at Meta, Innovations with Ray-Ban Meta and Neuralband. Please help me give our presenters a big, enthusiastic welcome.
Thank you for that warm welcome. And thank you to the organizers for bringing together such an extraordinary community of technologists, researchers, advocates, and leaders. My name is Maxine Williams. I'm the Vice President of Accessibility and Engagement at Meta. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Today, I am thrilled to be in a room where accessibility is taking center stage. We are living through a profound shift in how humans interact with technology. Artificial intelligence is advancing rapidly. Wearables, such as the glasses I'm wearing, are becoming more capable and more contextual. Interfaces are shrinking, transitioning from screens in our hands to devices we wear, and becoming increasingly more hands-free. But the real question before us isn't simply, well, what is technically possible? The question is, how do we advance, and how do these advances expand independence? How do they reduce friction in everyday life? Are they making your lives better? And how do we ensure that people with disabilities are helping to shape what comes next? Today, we will focus on two areas of work at Meta that sit at the intersection of AI and wearables and accessibility. Our Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses and the Meta Neural Band, which I also have here. These technologies share a common goal of enabling more intuitive, seamless interaction with the digital and physical world. Let's start with the Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses. At their core, these glasses are designed to enable connection without relying on a handheld screen. They enable someone to ask a question, capture a moment, receive information, or speak to loved ones without pulling out a phone. For many people with disabilities, that shift, it matters so deeply. We've heard from those within the blind and low vision community who describe daily life as a constant shortage of hands, right? I'll say it louder for the back. A shortage of hands. One hand might be holding a cane or managing a guide dog. The other is opening doors, carrying bags, navigating space. Introducing a phone into that equation can make simple tasks significantly more complex. Hands-free AI changes that dynamic. With Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses, a user can ask the glasses to describe what's in front of them. They can receive contextual information in real time. They can stay oriented to their surroundings while accessing digital assistance. One powerful example of this is our integration with Be My Eyes, which many of you may be familiar with. Through the Call a Volunteer feature, a blind or low vision user can initiate hands-free calls to the Be My Eyes network of more than 8 million sighted volunteers directly through the glasses. The volunteer sees what the user sees through the camera and provides real-time support. That could mean confirming, that you're using the correct spice while cooking, locating a dropped item, selecting the right product on a shelf, picking a shirt that matches with the rest of the outfit. These sound like everyday tasks, but they're important, and they're made simpler and more fluid. And what's equally important, is how these features come to life. The work is shaped in partnership with the disability community. Feedback from users with diverse needs has directly informed how these interactions are triggered, how they feel in real-world environments, and how they can continue evolving to deliver value to the people who use them every day. And these collaborations help us uncover new and unexpected opportunities to remove daily friction. For example, we've partnered with the Oscar Mike Foundation, which is a nonprofit that supports veterans living with disabilities, to explore how AI glasses can support people experiencing memory loss and traumatic brain injuries. In a recent research engagement, we heard from them that features like live captions and contextual recall could reduce cognitive load and help these veterans to stay present in conversations. You'll hear more about this research shortly, but what I want to emphasize is this. When we design along with communities, we serve, the technology becomes more grounded and more useful. Innovation isn't limited to what we build ourselves. We are also investing in an ecosystem approach through our Wearables Device Access Toolkit. The toolkit allows developers to build applications directly on our AI glasses, making it easier for startups, nonprofits, and research institutions to iterate on accessibility-focused tools and receive feedback from the community. Because accessibility scales when more builders have access to the tools needed to create with inclusivity in mind. Ray-Ban Meta represents what accessible AI can look like in the present, practical, wearable, and grounded in real-world use. But we are also thinking about what interaction may look like beyond voice, beyond even visible movement. We recently introduced the Meta Neural Band. That is this wrist-worn device that I'm wearing right now. I'm holding up my hand and pointing to a band around my wrist that's the size of a watch band. That wrist-worn device is powered by something called surface electromyography, or EMG. EMG measures the tiny electrical signals that travel from your brain to the muscles in your hand and wrist. Even before your fingers visibly move, those signals are present. The neural band detects those signals and translates them into digital inputs. What makes this especially compelling for accessibility use cases is its sensitivity. The device can pick up subtle muscle activity, including from people who may have limited visible hand movement. That opens up new possibilities for interaction. You may not have noticed, but I have been swiping with my thumb, with the neural band picking up my movement, indicating that I wanted to move the text, which is written on the screen of these glasses in a teleprompter. It's remarkable what is possible. And we're not building this alone. Earlier this year, we announced a new research collaboration with the University of Utah to evaluate our neural band devices with people who have different levels of hand mobility, including muscular dystrophy, ALS, stroke, and other conditions. This collaboration enables us to not only test and learn, but to co-design. Together with the researchers and participants, we'll be developing and refining custom gesture controls that could interface with smart home technologies, things like speakers, blinds, locks, and thermostats. Consider something as simple as raising a window blind. For some people, turning a wrist or tapping a screen is intuitive and easy. For others, those motions may not be possible or might only be accomplished with extreme difficulty. This neural band's ability to detect subtle muscle signals means these human-computer interactions do not have to depend on large visible movements. The partnership with the University of Utah also extends beyond the home. Researchers will evaluate how neural band gestures could interface with mobility devices, including the university's Tetra Ski, which is an adaptive ski system designed for people with physical disabilities. Today, that system uses a joystick or sip and puff controls, but EMG presents another potential pathway, translating wrist muscle activity into steering angle adjustments. Beyond the possibilities unlocked by this technology, what excites me most is our collaboration model. Industry, academia, healthcare professionals, and end users all working together to ensure that we are designing based on lived experiences and measurable feedback, not just assumptions about ability. If there is one common theme that unites this work, it is partnership. Partnership with Be My Eyes, with the Oscar Mike Foundation, with academic institutions like the University of Utah. The true impact of this technology is realized through collaboration across disciplines and communities. Oh, I already brought up this slide with my colleagues. In a moment, you'll hear from a few of my colleagues who represent Meta's product development and hardware engineering teams. And they're going to dive into how partnership fuels not only our innovations, but everything we do. We are honored to be part of this work and even more honored to be here with a community that continues to raise the bar for what inclusive innovation should look like. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for being part of building a more accessible technological future. It's my pleasure now to introduce the product manager. First, Marc Bourget. Oh, let's start with Gus Mehta, who seems like many people know. Director of Concept Engineering. And I'll just say Marc Bourget, who's sitting next to Gus, who will also be speaking, hardware engineer, and Zhang, who I think many people in this audience also know. Gus, you're going first?
Thank you so much for the kind intro, Maxine, and thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm going to start out by talking to you about something that I think we all know, about the community, its needs, and our opportunities for making things even better. To start off, I'm Agustya Mehta. I also go by Gus. I'm a 5'9", half Indian, half white, pretty good-looking guy with a long ponytail that my family is kind of making fun of me for. And I'm also wearing the Meta Ray-Ban display glasses and the neural band. But because I have low vision, my prescription is about plus 17 diopters. We don't make the glasses in my prescription. And so for those of you who can see, you can see what I'm wearing. For those who cannot, I'm wearing a 3D printed frame that I've made to clip on the inside of my glasses that I've manually put in large lenses into. So I think this is sort of a live demonstration of some of the things that we often do to get by that aren't polished, but that can maybe pave the way for good stuff. The statistic from the World Health Organization is that there's about 1.3 billion people that live with disability. I'm pretty sure that number is quite a bit larger because there's a large fraction of the population that, for whatever reason, sees that as a stigma. And while I don't agree with that, I do agree with the concept of using technology to elevate everybody. And I think there's lots of opportunity for making technology a bridge that can connect the world no matter what your background is. I'm now throwing up an image of myself and my mother and her first guide dog. This picture was taken about 30 years ago, and it's an image of myself navigating the USS Nautilus with my mom. It's a US naval submarine turned into a museum. Mom's blind, and growing up seeing firsthand how she leveraged various assistive tools to connect to the world gave me a pretty good front row seat onto where there were areas of opportunity and also a pretty good front row seat onto things I would likely be contending with as I got older. An amusing aside here, Amber is the name of my mom's first guide dog, a wonderful long-haired German Shepherd. My wife, whom I met decades later, is named Amber. So, complete coincidence, but it is a source of endless amusement from those around me. Now, I like to show this image and tell this story in the beginning of my presentation, not only because it's an adorable picture and it's a heartwarming thing to see a guide dog and a younger version of myself, but I would still contend that even 30 years later, the guide dog is the state of the art in terms of intelligent assistance. Canine intelligence outperforms artificial intelligence in most tasks. I would even contend that canine intelligence often outperforms human intelligence, but that's a topic for another talk. I think that we're at a really interesting cusp in the push of technology, an inflection point, if you will, where that may soon no longer be the case. And while I never would want to put somebody out of work, I think that guide dogs may transition from a necessary tool to something that is an option that maybe could be superseded by something more scalable and more accessible to a larger number of people. Now, what's so special about this era of time in technology? Why do I think that this is unique compared to the last few decades? Even the current solutions, like the guide dog, now pictured here is my mom and Kovacs, her second guide, there are limitations. In this image, Kovacs is looking towards a sign that says, "Danger, stay back." And he had a really good sense of humor, so he knew enough that people thought it was funny when he looked at stuff as though he could read it. He could not read, and I have to explain this to many people whom I've given this talk to, and my mom often had to explain this to people. I'm sure many of you with guide dogs in the audience have had people ask, whether the dog can read the street sign or look at the traffic indicator, and it's kind of amusing, the assumptions people make. Now, computer vision can already outperform the dog for reading text, but dogs, people, and other living beings are better at understanding scenes, navigating, and determining the nature of an object and what's around you. That is the thing that AI is now superseding, and even week by week, month by month, it's getting better and better. I'm going to take a little bit of a step through history and walk through stuff that I remember growing up, and I know many of you do too. There's often an idea that technology, or frankly everything, gets better as time moves forward. In terms of the legal protections provided for the community in the United States, perhaps that's true. When my mom was younger, there were no laws protecting her right to see the chalkboard, and as a result, she was at the mercy of the teacher on whether or not she'd have access to what was going on in the classroom. As a result, my mom, one of the smartest people I know, and someone I credit very heavily for the success I've had in my education and my career, was not able to achieve her potential in education and in career from what I know would have been possible. However, I do think there are some aspects of the past that perhaps we've forgotten in this fast-moving era of quick iteration. I have pictured here a rotary telephone. How many of you in the audience remember these? If you raise your hand, okay, good. I've given this similar talk to college students, and sometimes I get strange looks from people, so I'm glad I don't have to explain what this is. I throw this image up because the rotary phone was not designed as an accessible device, but I would contend that its design was probably more accessible than many of the modern iterations that were made afterwards. Because yes, you can see the digits, but you can also feel them and hear them, And this means that the device is accessible across a number of surfaces, a number of senses. And so in the 60s, 70s, 80s, the era Mom grew up in, even though many aspects of society were backward and needed to move forward, I think that product design for mature technologies, things that had been around a lot, naturally tends towards things that can be used across multiple senses. As I step forward in time to the 90s and early 2000s, from when that submarine picture was taken, technology was moving at a breathtaking speed. The vision from our friends in Redmond, Washington was a computer on every desk in every home, and that was achieved. Computing went from something that nerdy guys with thick glasses like myself did to something that came to everyone. And a part of that transition was the graphical user interface. I'm more comfortable with command lines. Mom was too, because a speech synthesizer can translate a string of text into speech. And even though when graphical user interfaces first came out, there were early screen readers, and there was some amazing work done by our friends now at Vispera with JAWS and in the open source community with NVDA, for the most part, computers left people like Mom behind. And she actually had less access to the world in this era than she did before it. She became more dependent on her non-canon family members like myself to read stuff for her, because at least in the era beforehand, her shortwave radio with big physical buttons gave her access to the news around the world, sometimes before it came to the visual media on TV. And that type of media waned. The internet became a thing. It became really good for connecting some parts of the world, but it did leave Mom behind. I'm going to step forward a bit more in time. My previous image was of the desktop PC era, and for those who can't see, I had a blue screen of death on there, so hopefully that brings some fond memories for folks. I've now got an image of a touchscreen mobile phone. This is the time frame upon which I began my career, and it brought me a lot of trepidation and worry that it would be a repeat of the graphical user interface, that we'd be moving to another interface that would leave Mom behind. I had already seen this same transition take place in other aspects of daily life, like elevators, that had moved from having physical buttons, which are very easy to use for everybody, to touchscreen interfaces, which I still am not quite sure why. I've never seen an elevator where I really wished that I could not know what floor I was going to. And I do have to give credit to another one of my former employers and now competitors, this time in Cupertino, California, with how they approached the touchscreen interface with the iPhone. Mom could use physical buttons on previous cell phones. I was worried the touchscreen would leave her behind. But with the 3GS and iterations beyond that, if you take an iPhone, you take it out of the box, VoiceOver will start talking to you if you don't interact with it quickly enough. And out of the box, there's a pretty good accessibility solution. The touchscreen was thought of not just as an interface where you visually look at something and touch it, but one where you can use two fingers, just like that rotary phone, and move through a menu with relative gestures. One where you can type in Braille, as though the screen were a corded keyboard. I think this move was not only great for the blind and low vision community, but it's a big part of the reason why that device was considered much more usable by the wider community than alternative touch interfaces. The act of making it usable across multiple modalities implicitly made it better to use for everyone. And that's a big part of the point I like to land home when I talk through this to audiences that maybe don't have the implicit understanding or empathy of this community of why this stuff is important. The 1.3 billion number helps me, but letting folks know that this type of design decision is not just good morally, but it's good business, is often a great way to steer the conversation in a direction that gets people's ears perked up regardless of their background. Now I have on screen an image similar to the one Maxine was showing before of the Ray-Ban Meta our Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 AI glasses. And I think the combination of the type of compute that is possible on mobile phone, some of the amazing innovations that were developed by friends like Sakib at Microsoft, like Seeing AI, those solutions are awesome, but when tethered to a phone, you're now using up a hand that could otherwise be used for something else. I think the wearable aspect of this type of device is transformational. I think the other aspect that's transformational is that these devices are mainstream mass market products. While I have great admiration for many of my friends and partners in industry that have built accessibility forward products that target just the community, there is a fact in hardware development around economies of scale. If I make a tool that can injection mold a plastic part, that might cost $1 million. And it's going to cost $1 million whether I push 1 million parts through it or 1,000 parts through it. What that means is that something that would add $1 to the cost of 1 million volume would add $1,000 to the cost of something that's 1,000 volume. And so that's why devices that have done similar things in the past have been expensive. It's not because of greed. I remember when I was younger looking at the price tag of offerings for mom and thinking, this is exploitive. But it's not through bad intent that this is the case. It's unfortunately the economics of it. And so the beauty of taking the approach of pushing the industry to incorporating features and thinking about all of us as users and not just as a niche cohort is so important. It's also important because all of us want to look good and wear things that are cool. And I remember when I was younger, we got a remote control. It was a low vision remote control for mom. And it literally looked like a toddler toy. It looked like somebody took a remote in Microsoft Paintbrush, grabbed the corner and dragged it and just made it big and goofy looking. Nobody wants that. Sometimes you need to have something like that. But in general, it's really nice to just wear something that you'd want to wear no matter what. Not everybody always wants to be in advocacy mode all the time. I think it's important to be proud of who we are, and of course we should never hide it, but I don't know how many of you have gotten in an Uber and had to have the entire ride be spent talking about what an inspiration you are. It gets old, right? And I go into defense mode with mom a lot, either in trying to get them to dial back from that or explain to them that yes, the law does demand that you accept the guide dog into the Uber. I think the more we are able to buy offerings that are taken off the shelf and the more that we're able to push the industry into accepting their customer base as one that includes people with disabilities, the better we're going to push society. Regulation and laws are very important. That's a really good push, but I do think innovation is a good pull. And I think it's also one that usually is an easier argument to make for product leaders and engineering leaders that I've worked with in big tech. I've now got an image of a curb cut. How many of you have heard this term in relation to disability technology advocacy? Okay, most of you have. This is my tie-in where I try to give the argument to mixed audiences of why this work is important. The curb cut, as most of you know, was designed and incorporated into US cities and now in much of the world as a measure to make cities more accessible for people that use wheelchairs. And it was adopted widely, largely through the teeth of regulation, like the Americans with Disabilities Act in the United States. However, I have never found a person that I have talked to that has encountered a curb cut that has not found it useful, whether disabled or not. If you've used luggage or a shopping cart or a stroller, you've benefited from these. It's just a better design decision, period. There's many examples of this. The bumps on the F and the J key on the keyboard, they let my mom type, but they let everyone type better. closed captioning, which has become ubiquitous thanks in large part to the amazing efforts of advocates in the deaf and hard of hearing community. Sorry about that. That is an amazing tool, not just for that community. When I watch movies, my wife and I always have closed captioning on because she is hard of hearing, but it's amazing for me. I cannot watch a Christopher Nolan movie and understand anything they are saying unless the volume is cranked up so loudly that I'll be damaging my hearing. So that's why I love subtitles and closed captioning. And I think these are some really good examples and fodder for all of us when we're trying to explain to our peers in the wider mainstream world about why this work is important. We're not building stuff for some other. We're not some niche community that there's already a solution for. We're actually, one, valid, important, and worth building for, but two, building for the disabled community is better product design in general. I have a few friends that work at Tesla, and I often give them grief for the touchscreen interface in their cars. And they will retort back to me, well, Gus, blind people don't drive. And the thing that often sounds very basic to, I think, this audience, but is an epiphany for them is that, well, no, maybe not yet, but even when a sighted person is driving, should their eyes be on a screen in the car? Functionally speaking, everyone should be blind to what's in the car when they're driving, right? And I have to say, I mean, I still am able to drive, and I have a 20-year-old Honda Accord. I can navigate the menu and change the radio. I don't feel safe driving in a car where I have to look away from the road. The other argument, and ammo I'll like to give the community when advocating for ourselves, because we're often pushed in a position to do that, is that accessibility and universal design concepts spur innovation. I have pictured here an image of the Kurzweil reading machine. This was a collaboration between Ray Kurzweil, a transformational technologist and someone who's done so much for this community, also fellow MIT alum, so I always like to throw that in there. And it was built in the 70s with the purpose of reading books out loud for people who are blind. In the process of building this device, Kurzweil invented the CCD flatbed scanner, like the thing that's in every copy machine. He invented speech synthesis that was intelligible, the technology behind pretty much everything we do nowadays, like Siri and whatnot. And he invented optical character recognition, OCR, the technology that allows computers to take text and ingest it. These are core fundamental technologies we all use in everything, not just in accessible tech. And they wouldn't have happened, or at least they wouldn't have happened when they did, without this effort. There's tons of examples of things like this. And so I think the next time someone asks one of you, well, that sounds like a nice thing to do, but really, is that the highest priority thing we have? How big is the total addressable market? I hope that some of these examples give you something to retort back and maybe change some hearts and minds. As I close out and hand off to my colleague Marc, I'm going to tell you one more quick story, which I think is pretty cool. I have pictured here my colleague Sophia Gallo. She's a UX researcher in our Seattle office. She's blind. She has a really wonderful guide dog that she just got trained with and partnered with, and I'm very eager to meet in the next couple weeks. And Sophia, myself, Fan, who's going to be speaking in about a minute or two once I finally wrap up. I'm sorry for my loquacious nature. We did a hackathon project back in 2022. This was before the AI hype train came on, before everyone was using GPT. I had been coming off the heels of working with Sakib at Microsoft a couple years back with Seeing AI, something that I use and my mom uses every day. And as we were doing early iterations of the prototypes that were taking place before Ray-Ban Meta, we thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to incorporate this type of multimodal AI into glasses? So we did a hackathon project. It got a lot of internal traction. It did some changing of hearts and minds within our leadership. And while the accessibility pitch of multimodal AI was something that we wrapped into our messaging post-ship, this was actually the first demonstration and first engineering build-out of multimodal AI on glasses at the company. A lot of folks don't realize that some of the really great features that they use every day in the mainstream started out as accessibility efforts. And I feel very proud of this story because even though the effort to move the direction of a large company is not always easy, whenever I look at the feature sets that we're selling and putting in our products, I feel a lot of pride that one of the biggest ones was nudged a little bit in part by thinking about the blind and low vision community. And a few weeks after we released multimodal AI, I have to be honest, it was a bit of an uphill battle inside the company at first to get that story through to some of our leadership that accessibility is important, this community is going to love this product. My brother called me up. He says, Gus, your work's in the Wall Street Journal. I had a spike of adrenaline because at Meta, that's usually not a good thing. and the article's headline was, this is something unprompted, unsolicited by the company. Believe me, that the press isn't always our friend. Talking about how the blind and low vision community had been buying this product like gangbusters and adopting it. And this felt not only vindicating and something I could show to internal leadership of, hey, this stuff's important, but it also made me feel welled up with pride that maybe a little sliver of some of the stuff I've tried to do in my career in hardware and product design has nudged stuff in the right direction. And it's not just Meta. I think that there is a whole direction the industry will go in that is going to make the world more connected, better, and more pleasant for all of us meaning everybody with disabilities or not. I'm now going to hand it off to Marc, who's going to talk about a little bit more detail on some of our partnerships and the amazing work we do, as well as some of the opportunities going forward. So thank you so much, and I'll hand it off to Marc.
Thank you, Gus. Hello, everyone. My name is Marc Bourget. I'm a product manager. I'm a 5'11" black male. And thank you all for being with us early on a Friday morning. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to take a quick picture of the room. We have a packed house. Hey, Meta, take a picture. Got it. Thanks. That's for the memory book there. So just to give you guys a little bit of insight, I've been in product for over 20 years, and I'm not related to or previously had any close ties with anyone that was living with a disability. So when I changed from ad tech into assistive technology, it was a very eye-opening experience for me. And I'm fortunate enough that over the past couple years, while I've been working in this space, I've developed some close relationships with those in the community, specifically those that are blind and low vision. And I've never been more excited to get up every day and contribute to the vision that we have here in leveraging AI and wearables to help make a difference in the day-to-day lives of those. You keep seeing headlines that talk about how the technology is transformative, and that's inspiring for me to keep pushing and stay committed to the mission at hand. So thank you for allowing me to come in and help develop technology to suit your needs. So we have been, thank you. So we have been busy, and the feedback from the community has been encouraging and has been incredible. We brought Be My Eyes volunteer calling to the Meta AI glasses completely hands-free. Maxine earlier showed a picture from our Connect conference back in 2024 when Mark Zuckerberg was on stage announcing this partnership. It's very exciting because that was a signal to the industry that Meta is committed to building with inclusivity and building assistive technology for those that can benefit from it. We followed this up with detailed responses. Gus just talked to you guys about our multimodal AI capabilities. The feedback from the community was that this is great in helping us leverage AI to be a visual interpreter, but the details are lacking. We need a lot more visual description. So detailed responses is an AX accessibility enhancement, which provides rich AI-powered descriptions of the world around you. And so like I said earlier, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, but there's more to do. And we're happy to talk to you guys about some of the other investments that we have coming along the way and the partnerships that we are taking advantage of to be able to make sure that we deliver that responsibly. So our work for the blind and low vision community has gotten the most visibility, but our North Star has always been to make sure that we can deliver value and help address those use cases across all 5 major disability cohorts. The Meta Ray-Ban display glasses enable live captions. This is a mainstream feature. However, who's benefiting from it the most? Those that are deaf and hard of hearing are leveraging this technology and giving us feedback about how we can enhance it to make it even better. The neural band allows a different form of input, but there's a lot of potential for those that have physical disabilities. Even something as simple as just voice commands, right? For those that have speech disabilities, or again, physical disabilities, this value that it's delivering for those. So each of these value adds in these use cases can be further enriched, further enhanced by working closely with the community. So that's the primary principle that we have, is deep partnership with the communities that we're building for. And we're building for every disability cohort. So I wanted to be clear with that. And so I do have other categories here. And so I just want you guys to know, I want to be clear. It's been clear the benefits to the blind and low vision community, but we do see all of the other cohorts as well. So we have 3 stories to share with you guys today on our journey to deepen our partnerships. First is Be My Eyes. Earlier this week, we announced some new capabilities, which we'll be going into. Second, we announced our developer device access toolkit at our Connect conference back in September. And the excitement and interest from the developer community has been tremendous. We never expected the level of outreach that we've seen. And we've seen a special concentration within the accessibility developer community. And so it's been great. Yes, I see you over there, Tapware. And so we'll be sharing some of the upcoming developers. There's a lot of them, but we'll just be previewing a couple for you guys here today as well. And third, we'll share insights from the research partnership that's taken us into entirely new territory, which is cognitive accessibility. So Be My Eyes, I think you guys are all familiar with them. They're one of the most important partnerships in our accessibility portfolio. When we first announced them on the Meta AI glasses, it was a breakthrough hit. For the first time, blind and low vision users could connect with a sighted volunteer completely hands-free. They just said, "Hey Meta, be my eyes," and the response was incredible. But both Meta as well as the Be My Eyes team knew that this was just a starting point. We've been working closely over the last couple of years to unlock even more. So building on our initial success, we were thrilled earlier this week to announce Be My Eyes group calling is now available on the Meta AI glasses. This means you can now access your private groups of trusted friends, family, or specialists completely hands-free. It's incredibly valuable for those sensitive or private situations where you don't want to talk to a stranger but someone that you know and trust. You can use them for use cases such as reviewing medical documents or getting the opinion from someone that you trust when you're out shopping. It's about bringing a new level of privacy and convenience to the visual assistants. We also brought Be My Eyes service directory capabilities to the Meta AI glasses. This gives users hands-free access to specially trained customer service agents at major brands. Imagine saying, "Hey Meta, be my eyes" with Hilton, and being able to instantly connect to a representative. No more fumbling with your phones, no more sorting through which apps are the right ones. That fragmentation is a big problem, and now you can use the glasses to connect with a professional very quickly and hands-free. This is the first hands-free access to corporate accessibility services, and it's completely free to the users. So these new capabilities just highlight the power of consistent voice interaction model, right? So now it's very powerful when you could just use a simple command such as be my eyes with, and then you just say what you need, whether that's connecting to a volunteer or a trusted friend or to a corporate entity. The interaction remains consistent. There's one phrase to use, and then you use with, and you append what you need. This intuitive pattern is key for us to unlocking endless possibilities. I have a couple quotes here. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read them verbatim, but the whole point here is that Meta and Be My Eyes, this is a mutual commitment to raising the bar in accessibility. Both teams have invested significant engineering resources, sharing insights, and pushing each other to do more and do better and move faster. The community deserves it. For users, it's tremendous. Be My Eyes just recently crossed 1 million users worldwide. For them, while we've also been working on expanding languages, we now support Be My Eyes and Meta AI glasses in 6 languages across 21 regions, and we'll continue to build upon that. They now also get hands-free access to that corporate accessibility services from major global brands. So a crucial part of building with the community is also addressing the disability data desert. Most public AI data sets lack the context of lived experiences from the blind and low vision community. So we're working to change that. Be My Eyes is licensing anonymized multimodal video data to help train Meta's AI models to be more accurate and inclusive. This is a privacy-first approach. All the data is anonymized, and users maintain full control of what's being shared. So now, I'd like to shift to our second partnership story, and I'll be bringing Fan up to talk a little bit more about that. Fan?
Thanks, Mark. As you can see, I had to adjust the microphone because I'm shorter than Mark and Gus, less good looking, but but we all have an enthusiasm for accessibility unknown to humankind. I wish I could say that better, but it was better in my head. I also want to thank y'all for coming this morning because this was an early talk, and I love seeing the energy and enthusiasm here, so much love, much love. So as Mark was outlining the different partnership stories, let me shift to our second partnership story. One of our most consistent pieces of feedback we hear from the accessibility community is, I love what Meta AI glasses can do, but we want to see our favorite apps on the platform too. We heard you, and at Connect, we announced the Device Access Toolkit, or DAT, which opens our wearable device platform to third-party developers for the first time. This is a direct response to that community demand, but opening the platform is just one part of our commitment, and we're also investing directly in the ecosystem. Thank you for all that who may have heard about the impact grants. We unfortunately closed the submissions for this on March 9th, but we had a ton of interest from a lot of folks in this audience, right? We're about to award nearly $2 million to over 30 organizations. This includes accelerator grants, providing $25,000 or $50,000 for organizations already using AI glasses to scale their impact. And Catalyst grants offer $200,000 for developers proposing new high-impact applications using the Device Access Toolkit. This investment shows our commitment to fostering innovation and supporting the community that builds with us. So what exactly is the Device Access Toolkit? So in short, it's an SDK that allows you access to the Meta AI glasses, the cameras, sensors, microphones. Developers can use this to build entirely new experiences and take advantage of the hands-free, always-on form factor that makes these glasses so valuable for accessibility. And we first announced our Be My Eyes integration at Connect conference in 2024. I've been privileged to work with companies like Seeing AI and HumanAware in building the Device Access Toolkit that we announced earlier. Let's give a hand out to Seeing AI and HumanAware. Today, we're thrilled to share that Orion and Ira will also be among the first accessibility partners to launch experiences on Meta AI Glass. Let's go! Yes! Yes! All right. If you're in the accessibility community, you know these names. These are established, trusted organizations that have been serving the blind and low vision community for years. And now they're bringing their loved experiences to the Meta AI glasses. So let's take a closer look at Orion. So Orion, Stephanie, and Excel, please, there's your hands. They are in the audience today, coming directly from France. So what they've built is something that we've heard from the community many times. How can I find something? How can I find my gate at the airport? How can I find water bottle, whatever that might be? They're now bringing that technology to the Meta AI glasses. In IRA, I think we've probably heard this for so many times from people asking us, when are you going to bring us IRA to the glasses? Well, I'm love it. Yeah, I'm excited to share that very soon, IRA will be launching on your favorite Meta AI glasses. So, and let me zoom out for a moment. What you're seeing here is an accessibility ecosystem forming around the glasses, but it's no longer about what we're building natively. The Device Access Toolkit enables an ecosystem, right? And so for folks who are here today, you guys also have been to the Hapware booth, I'm sure, and seeing Jack and Dr. Brian here as well, and seeing let's go! Seeing what they're building on the glasses to enable people to be able to recognize emotions, be able to recognize if someone turned away. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. What we've shown for our ecosystem growing, but we also want to invite you to be part of it. If you're an accessibility developer or organization, we want you to build with us. The Device Access Toolkit is available today, giving the access to the camera, sensors, and microphones. And so I talked a little bit more about the different impact grants, so I'm going to skip forward a little bit. The Oscars music are starting to come on, so I'm okay. And our third partnership story is in cognitive disability. It's incredibly important, but for this work, we've partnered with the Oscar Mike Foundation. Oscar Mike is a foundation that supports disabled veterans. And in this case, we partnered with them to explore how the glasses can help those veterans with cognitive disabilities, so memory loss in particular from traumatic brain injuries. This is a workshop that we held last October, and we learned a ton. One of the platforms that we wanted to get feedback on was some of our research prototypes. This is one of the prototypes we showed was the Aria Gen 2 glasses. So this has access to a lot of sensors. We announced this research vehicle last year. And some of the insight here is also the form factor advantage. A phone app might not necessarily work if you have memory loss, because you have to remember, right? What if you have something that can actually proactively help you remember your tasks, remember your daily activities? So also let me share with some of you what we learned from this research. First, building for cognitive disability is fundamentally different, but also very similar to building with visual accessibility. With cognitive challenges, the user may not realize they need help or remember the tool is available. This means the technology needs to be more proactive, more contextual, and more ambient. Glasses form factor is also uniquely suited for this. The implications extend far beyond veterans. Memory loss affects millions of people as they age, whether it's through age-related memory loss or ADHD or whatnot. After all the research and technical details, it's vital to remember the human element. We've heard from veterans like Edward and Elizabeth. Elizabeth said, it makes us feel more human. One of the descriptions that was describing for someone with memory loss is, imagine you're reading a book, and all of a sudden, your bookmark falls out, and you've lost your page, and the book dropped to the ground, right? And that was such a great illustration that really sunk with me personally, and how that pain point could potentially be experienced by those people with memory loss, but how our products could potentially help. This journey from research to product vision also shows a clear progression. Each step built on collaboration, from a hackathon prototype in 2022 to shipping features in 2024, and then opening our platform in 2025. Now in 2026, we're exploring new frontiers in cognitive accessibility. This timeline highlights how Meta AI glasses are evolving. We're moving beyond visual assistance, becoming a more comprehensive platform for human accessibility across all needs. And every single step has been driven by partnership, leading us to our core model. And so these three stories illustrate our core partnership model. We're deepening these relationships, like with Be My Eyes. We're opening up our new platform with a device access toolkit, and we're exploring new frontiers with Oscar and Mike. We've talked a lot about software and partnerships, but none of this is possible without the right hardware. We're also adding accessible features to the consumer product. This means designing from the ground up to serve people with disabilities across all cohorts. Our Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses offer prescription support and universal fit, making them usable for a wide range of people. But we know we can all do more, and we are going to listen to that feedback. I also want to close with a commitment. We know that trust is earned through sustained action, not just presentations. So here's what you can expect from us. We'll continue to deepen partnerships. We'll continue to open our platform to accessibility developers. We'll continue to invest in research with organizations like Oscar and Mike. And we'll continue to build with the community, guided by nothing about us without us. Accessibility isn't a feature we bolt on at the end. It's a design principle that shapes how we build from the beginning. This commitment drives everything we do. Thank you all for your time and engagement. This community drives everything we do in accessibility, and we're grateful for this partnership. If you're a developer or represent accessibility organizations and want to explore the device access toolkit, or have any other questions, please find us at the session or our booth. We'll be here, or actually, sorry, not our booth. Just come find us right after the talk. We appreciate you guys. We love y'all. Let's build the future of accessibility together. Thank you.